Pimp My Team, NRL Fantasy, Edition 2. Nothing's more important than family. All right, let's get into it, guys. Pimp My Team, we are on here. I'm looking at 7 fantasy sides. I'm looking at exactly how we can improve these teams, what they need to do to pimp it up and head into the bye season nice and strong. Now, quick shout out first. We've got a sponsor for this video. NRL Hub have come in. They are tipping and betting experts on the NRL space. More about them at the halfway point of this video, but they are absolute legends. Link in the description. More details coming soon. Now, let's get right into it here. So first team we got up here is Jaho, absolute legend on the channel. So if you guys want your team pimp, by the way, it's a perk of being upgraded on Discord. I have a link in the Discord right now. If you just want to watch, that's fine too. A lot of us have the same team setups, so all this advice is going to be helpful. But for Jaho here, let's jump right into this. So Jaho's team, Harry Grant. All right, you're going to have to look at that. We got Jolliffe injured as well. Carrigan with Origin coming up. McKaylee, bit dodgy. Crichton, Origin coming up. Pierce Paul on the bye. I'm working through this team. Lockie Galvin, there's talk he might not play this week. Nico Hines, Origin coming up. Armstrong on the bye. Yeah, all right. There's some problems to deal with here. Look, first things first, I'm going to say you are desperately hoping that Robson doesn't play Origin, right? Because at this stage, you really need those numbers. I look at the bench here. It's pretty clean. Reece Walsh, obviously, he's in a bit of doubt for this week, but should be playing. So let's look at the moves we make first. So middle spot, Madison's back. You're going to need to move Madison and Max Plath into your starting side. Ooh, do you go? I think you might have to go Madison to edge for Kai Pierce-Paul, Plath into the middle spot. McKaylee or Sam Hughes, one of those guys will have to start for you. Probably Sam Hughes over McKaylee at this stage. Then the rest of the team here, Joey Manu is going to have to sneak into the team for Armstrong as well. So it means that you're going to have not too many red dots. A couple of guys on the buys, you should be okay. You need to move Jolliffe out of your team. An easy one for Jolliffe that really costs you no money at all is Max King. So you got 189k there as well. So you're in a pretty good spot. I would go Jolliffe to Max King, and then I wouldn't jump onto Reed Marnie right now. Jake Turpin is on the extended bench, and he's just been brought onto the bench. So I think Reed Marnie actually becomes a bit of a risky option. Overall, I think you might be able to get away with not necessarily trading or making this second trade. I would just wait for Origin team list. I think you got a pretty good roster. You're probably going to have to look at moving Gus Crichton if he makes a team. But at this stage, Joel to Max King, sit on that. You'll be sweet. Next team here, Jakey07. Now, Jake's in a nice spot, 5,000 rank. That's pretty good place to be, man. So for Jake, you've got Reece Robson, Carrigan, Cotter, Fino. That's very similar to my middle forwards. We're going to have to sell Cotter and Carrigan pretty soon. Crichton and Katoa. Again, mate, we're looking quite similar. Dylan Brown, Nico Hines, Kohler, Iro, Tedesco, Drinkwater, Garrick. Okay, so first thing I'm going to shout out here is that if Crichton and Tedesco make the Origin side, the Roosters have a really bad buy schedule for Origin players. It's a good schedule if you're not an Origin player. So for someone like Joey Manu, I'm big on him. But yeah, for Crichton and Tedesco, they miss round 13 and round 14 very soon. So wait on those team lists, but just keep an eye on them as guys you might have to move soon. For the bench, it looks pretty strong as well. You've got Marzu there, but that's okay. You can deal with that. Only one night. Keeney, he won't stay in for long. Overall, you got a pretty deep roster. Again, I'd be looking at sort of starting to make moves on some of these Origin guys. Ruben Cotter was really bad last year in terms of backing up from Origin because he goes so hard when he plays Origin, right? So it's not a diss on him necessarily, but he just doesn't get the minutes when he comes back to Clubland. I think Cotter has to go. You could look at doing Cotter to Max King right now. I don't mind that move. Just the Bulldogs have an awesome buy schedule, so you could definitely look at that. You also don't have Jaden Brayley, so that's where Reed Marnie would have been interesting, but Turpin being on the bench is a bit dicey. Again, I'm probably leaning more towards saving those trades this week. I think you can make that move of Cotter if you want to. You could look at wing fullback, but Tedesco is not guaranteed to make Origin. If he doesn't make it, he's such a good hold. Overall, I think stick with what you got. You made some moves last week. I know you got Kohler, for example. So yeah, I would stick with this team. Just make that one move if you want to. Otherwise, try and save trades. All right, Baden, next up. Head-to-head coach here. So it's a bit of a different shout for Baden. But for you, man, look, you ranked 2,000 and you're head-to-head, which it's a waste. It's a waste having such a good rank and only being a head-to-head player, man. So just swap over. Switch over. No, you got to win your league. Got to win your league. First thing I would say here is you got 11 trades left. So as a head-to-head coach, you need to start thinking about, all right, how do I save some trades? My assumption is that if you're ranked 2,266, you're probably doing quite well in your head-to-head league. So you're probably sitting high on the ladder. My thought here would be, how do I save trades if I'm you, right? And you don't have to worry about the buy rounds, so you don't have to worry too much about that. A guy like Pat Carrigan, for example, you can hold on to him. He's pretty reliable. He doesn't normally get hurt. He'll be fine. Gus Crichton as well. You can think about holding on to him. I would think about selling Cotter just because he's so ineffective for fantasy during the origin period historically. Then for the rest of the team backline, Tedesco's good price. I would keep Tedesco if I'm you. You're going to cop it in round 14, but that's okay. The bench is going to be fine as well. You're probably not as attached to Max Plath as the rest of us. He might be a sell sometime soon for you. Chevy Stewart, you get rid of him as well. The guys for Newcastle, that should be okay. Look, overall, you've got a full roster for this week. So you've got a full 17. I wouldn't sell any of those Knights players. I would think about selling Chevy Stewart. 158k. Okay, so you've suggested a trade here, Paddy Carrigan for Isaiah Yeo. I don't think that's necessarily worth doing. I think if you were going to make a trade like that, selling Cotter is better than selling Carrigan. So Cotter to Isaiah Yeo could be a good shout for you. Cotter, the reason I'm thinking about Cotter as well is he's got that game against the Tigers, and they've got a pretty weak roster this week. So I think the Cowboys could get up big, and I think Cotter might get a rest before Origin. Other options that you could look at moving on. Chevy Stewart's a pretty easy one for you to look at selling. I don't hate the idea of going Chevy Stewart to Pahulu from the Titans. He's about 283k. Could be a good shout there. If you've got K Weeks, if you've got Armstrong as well, I think Pahulu. So Chevy Stewart to Pahulu, if you want to shore up that middle forward spot, that could be a good shout. And then having a look at, I guess you don't have to worry about the buy rounds either. It's another thing to consider here. Do you want to get on one of these other players that we like? I don't hate the idea of, if I was you, looking at potentially like a Piakura out. So Piakura is pretty stagnant, right? Like he might make some cash, but you could sell him for someone like a Cody Walker who's sort of on the rise, but then the Jack Whiten effect. I think Cody Walker kills against Para this week, and he's sort of taking a more dominant role. He's discounted right now. It's now or never on him. That could be an option you look at. There's a few other players as well. Like you could look at Matamua from the Tigers. I'd probably wait a week on that, just see how he plays. Overall, I'm leaning towards saving trades. Maybe Cotter to Yo if you do want to shore up that middle forward spot, because Yo should back up pretty well. So I don't mind Cotter to Yo. All right, just a quick shout out here, NRL Hub guys. So these guys are awesome. Big thing to note for them is that with NRL Hub, they are professional NRL tippers. So the guys are awesome. You can do a free trial with them. Essentially, what you'd get with them is you get access to a bunch of different tips and a guarantee of making money, which is a big claim, but you'll have to check them out to see that for yourself. Just let them know that I sent you, mention the casual athlete in there, and they'll make sure to look after you there. So that's NRL Hub, link in the description. Now, let's keep rolling through here. So we've got Gun 40L. We've got 4 more teams to run through. For Gun, I'm looking at this team. It's quite strong. McKaylee is a starter, has me a little worried. And then I look at the bench and I go, all right, Tohu Harris as well. So I might just hover over these with mouse. McKaylee, I'm jumping straight to the bench, looking at Tohu. It's light at middle forward is my first bit of concern there, because Tohu, I don't know if I trust him completely. Back row is really good. Halves are the halves. Blaze Talangi, you're doing well there as well. Back line is clean. Got these Knights players. They're all good players. Chevy Stewart's one we could look at selling. Sean Johnson, if you've held to this point, you might as well think about holding him. Then, yeah, Dan Atkinson's there as well. Okay, we need to make some moves. So at this stage, you have 6 players who are going to be red dots for you. So at a minimum, you need to make 2 trades. Now, your rank right now is 2,700, so you're in a good spot. But we've got to make these moves. Do I want to sell Jaden Braley? Absolutely not. Armstrong, no. Pierce Paul, no. Tohu Harris, potentially. So he's due back round 14, but I don't know, like the injuries start to creep in. I worry a bit about Tohu because he's had such a fantastic career, but he's a little bit on the older end now, and I could see some restings coming in for him. So I would consider him. I think Sean Johnson's a great one to hold for you at this point. Like if you held on to him for a couple of weeks now, you might as well hang on to him. He should bounce back to normal, would be my guess. So I'm thinking Tohu Harris is probably a sell for you, and then Chevy Stewart's a pretty easy one to move on as well. I want to keep Knights boys, and yeah, we don't want to sell both Tohu and Johnson. So what could you get for that? So you got 32K in the bank. You probably want to downgrade Tohu to someone. I keep saying just buy Max King. That's that's not the only advice that we have here, but look, that wouldn't be the worst shout for you there. For your starting side, you've got a hooker. You got that covered. The back three wing fullback is looking strong. The center spot is looking strong. You probably need a forward at this stage. So who could you get in the forward spots? A couple of good shouts. It's risky right now, but you could look at a Ryan Madison, for example. So Tohu to Ryan Madison. That would free up some cash for you to then go Chevy Stewart to someone who has a bit of value. Who would you get for Chevy Stewart? You got Weeks, you got Armstrong. They're important ones there. Probably looking at one of the cheapies. So check out the buy, hold, sell video. I get one of those cheapies. You're going to have to roll the dice on one of them. It's going to be risky regardless, but they're interesting shouts. So I'm thinking Tohu and Chevy Stewart out. I like the idea of buying Ryan Madison for you. I think Hopgood makes Origin as well, so I think Madison's going to be good through this period. And then getting one of the cheapies, maybe someone like Pahulu to shore up your middle forward spot. Or there are some riskier options as well if you want to feel really crazy. I don't mind Aaron Clark as well instead of Ryan Madison. So there are a couple of options for you there, but yeah, you really need to shore up that middle forward spot and make sure you make 2 trades to get 17 players this week. Keep an eye on Lockie Galvin as well, because there is a chance that Galvin doesn't play this week too. So I'm just hearing these little whispers from tiny sort of spots. No guarantees whatsoever, but just something I'm hearing right now. All right. Akatsuki. Akatsuki comes in with a pretty good roster here. So we've got Brayley, Yo, Cotter, Plath. All right. It's a very strong middle forward section. Nakora, Crichton. You've got DCE and Hines, Iro, Penasini. I like Penasini when Moses comes back. It's a good shout. Kohler, Drinkwater, KO Weeks. We've got Garrick, Sam Hughes, Finu, Blaze, and some guys on the bench who won't play except for Keeney as well. Okay, so you've got a full roster except for that hooker spot. So what are we going to do with that hooker spot? You have a couple of options at hooker. And you've only got 26K in the bank. It's not the easiest spot for you to fill right now. Okay. My thought process is that you're in a bit of a different spot. So you've got a couple of these middle forwards on your bench that you could bring into your starting side. So if you wanted to move on a middle forward, that would work for you. If you wanted to move on a half, you could also do that too, because you've got KO Weeks who can move up into that spot, Ruben Garrick who can come into wing fullback, or you can move Max Plath into the half spot as well. So I'd be thinking a bit about DCE at this stage. Who do Manly have this week? I think it's a pretty tough matchup. I think it's a Storm. So I think DCE could be in for a quiet one. I think a good shout for you is to shore up that hooker spot with a DCE trade. Now, you got 26K in the bank, and I'm just going to look at this live here because I actually don't know DCE's exact price. But if you sell Trey Evans, you got 726K plus 26K, so 752K is a good amount of money to use there. All right, and then you've got the hooker spot you need to buy. There's a couple of options at hooker I don't mind for you. I wouldn't recommend Marnie, again, because Turpin is on that bench. It might not mean anything. It might ruin Marnie. Also, Jaden Brayley plays in round 13, so you don't need the round 13 cover. So you've got free space to sort of go for who you want to go for at this stage. You could look at a few guys. The guy I like the most and the guy I think could really pop off as we go along in the season is Damien Cook, 688K. That would free you up another 65K to use to upgrade Chevy Stewart if you feel like doing that as well. Another option down the list could be, I don't know if I love this yet, but Blake Brayley. He's in an interesting spot. He's getting quite cheap because of what happened with him playing the halves. So I wouldn't buy him yet, but at some point he's going to be down in the 500s. He's pretty reliable. I'd have a look at Jacob Little as well. How's Little been going lately, actually? Yeah, he's been in good form lately, Jacob Little. So he could be an option there too. He just had his buy, only has a buy in round 16. So that could be a good shout for you there. But overall, I think Damien Cook is the option. And then I'd look at Chevy Stewart, upgrade to a cheapie. You can also do that Chevy Stewart trade next week. So no rush on that one. You could think about potentially moving on Cotter at this stage as well. That would be an option. So Cotter for Damien Cook too, or DCE for Damien Cook. Depends on who you want to sell on this week and who you want to sell next week. But both those guys are guys I look at moving on pretty soon. All right, Starboy, absolute legend, Starboy. So 4,500 rank. Reese Robson. We got Cotter, Jolliffe, Smithies. We're going to have to deal with Jolliffe. We got Blore, Crichton. You got Nico Hines, Dylan Brown, Kale Iro, Jesse Ramian. Okay, he could be in Origin potentially. That's one to keep an eye on. David Armstrong, we're going to fill in that spot as well. KO Weeks, Tolu Kola. Then got Lockie Galvin, Jaden Braley, Samuel Afinu, Dan Atkinson, and the bench here as well. Okay, so first thing that's shouting out at me is there's a few guys that need to move on. Jamin Jolliffe has to go. And for mine, I personally believe that Jamin Salmon needs to go as well. So what can you do here? Right, you got holy, oh my god, I just saw the price that you have in your bank. 879K in the bank. Okay. That makes this a bit of a different conversation. Oh, geez. All right. So obviously you're going to trade Jolliffe out. Then you would be trading Salmon out, and then I'd throw on an extra trade here. I would keep Samuel Hughes because he's in the right spot with the Dogs, right? He's going to play these major buy rounds, so I'd stick with him. But you have to sell someone else. Who would you sell? Probably going to sell Piakura. I don't trust Piakura. He's going to make some cash at some point, but I think if you sell him, you're all good. Now, for 879K, you can do whatever you want pretty much with that money. What do you need to do? Okay, so first things first, if we're selling Jolliffe, then it means that Finu is your next up middle forward. Don't know if I fully trust him. I would be selling Jolliffe for, I keep saying it, but it's probably Max King. And the reason I say Max King over Tarpanay, for example, is that the Raiders have the bye in round 14. You've got 3 Raiders already, plus your Roosters players have a bye that week too, and a few other teams as well. So I'd be looking at Max King for Jolliffe. That's your first move. That's going to break even financially, so we still have a bunch of spare cash. Then Salmon and Piakura, we can sort of do whatever we want here. What do we want to do? Okay, you're ranked at 4,500. To me, that rank screams you got to make a few gambles to sort of move up the ranks here. Like you're going to move up the ranks through the Origin period anyway because you've quite got a good roster. But I want to roll the dice on a few things, right? So for you, Reese Robson theoretically plays round 13. Theoretically, I would wait on buying another hooker until you find out if he plays Origin. If he plays Origin, then he's going to miss round 13. He'll be pretty tough to handle. But then you got Brayley there in the round 13 slot, so you don't really need a hooker. You could probably look at your halves are pretty short up. You could look at wing fullback if you wanted to. Who would you even get at wing fullback at this stage? I mean, Latrell is a super pod, but he could make Origin as well. So we talked about him quite a bit, but he could easily just make the Origin side. I actually don't mind for you, Joey Manu. Now, this is going to be a little tricky with the way your team is set up with round 14 bye. So you're going to have to make some moves at the round 14 point. You probably have to sell Crichton as well at some stage later, but don't worry about that this week. I'm thinking we go Piakura to Joey Manu, and then we have a bit of money to upgrade Salmon to someone useful. My thought process here is that you want someone with a dual position capability in this roster. So you want someone who covers a few different spots, a couple of the spots where you're a bit more vulnerable. A guy who could be interesting, and it's such a pod. It's such a pod. Is Aaron Clark. Now Rob is more high on Aaron Clark than I am, but I don't mind the upside of him with the price he's at about 498K. He could be a very good shout for you here, and he covers the hooker and middle spot, and you get those buys that you were planning to get from Jolliffe anyway. Other options, you keep some cash in the bank as well, so you could hold on to a bit of that money. You could look at potentially getting someone like And again, it doesn't work for you because you've already got the center cover for round 13. But a guy like Isaac Tungo is kind of interesting to me. You could look at Scott Sorensen. That's probably the better shout. And actually, if I was gonna lock in these trades, I would probably say Jolliffe, Salmon, Piakura out, Max King, Joey Manu, and Sorensen in. I hope that works out financially. I think it works out financially. I'm pretty sure because um, Salmon to Sorensen's about 150k, and that would mean that you got 700k to use on the upgrade to Manu. Yeah, that's gonna be fine. So that's the trade I would do for you there. You've got a great spot. You are going to upgrade massively and benefit through this buy period. So good shout. Okay, next up. So we were talking about Starboy there. Next up, we got Riley. Riley's team is looking pretty. There's a lot of white patches. Obviously, an early screenshot. So a lot of these guys are starting. But starting team, obviously, Jolliffe jumps out at me here. We've got Nico Hines. Also, these are done in order of who sent them first to last. So Riley, mate, you're slipping. You're slipping. That last send in. But yeah, Nico Hines, Lockie Galvin, Garrick, Iro, Weeks, Armstrong, going to cover for as well. Dylan Edwards, great option there, great pod. On the bench, Kohler will slide into that starting spot, and then Plath will slide into the other starting spot in the middle. So we've got Sam Hughes, Dan Atkinson, Thomas McHaley, Xavier Wilson. Okay, so we can cover these players here, right? So we've got the two guys on the bye. We have Armstrong on the bye. Sorry, three guys on the bye for the Knights. And then we have Jolliffe. We want to move Jolliffe on. A couple of options you've proposed here. I had a look here. So you've got a few moves. Willison and Jolliffe out for Tungo and Sorensen. Not a bad option. Not a bad option at all. Okay, so you got Kale Iro. I'm just thinking about round 13, right? You're going to play two centers in round 13. Garrick doesn't play round 13. And then Kohler doesn't play round 13. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a great trade. I think it's a great pair of trades. You're upgrading across two positions there. Look, Penrith players aren't a cheat code for the buy rounds. They've got a good start to the buy rounds. But for Tungo and Sorensen, what you're getting there is 565k and 578k. You're getting cut price keepers. And they're not necessarily going to be those locked in top tier keepers, but they're guys who you can hold through this origin period and you can hold to the end of the year as sort of 17th, 18th men kind of players. When Tungo gets hot, he's one of the best centers in the game, though. So, yeah, I like those trades a lot. Leaves you with 140k to spare. Do you want to do anything else with that trade? I'll have a look at the team. I don't think you do. I think those two trades are fantastic. Would I consider moving someone else? I know you sent an option with McHaley out instead of Xavier Wilson. I think this is the issue, right? So Xavier Wilson is the better fantasy prospect. He's the better player. He gets the better minutes, all that sort of thing. But McHaley plays round 13, and I'm biased for round 13 right now. I think you can make the move and keep McHaley, sell Wilson, try not to start McHaley this week. Try and use a loophole with maybe an Atkinson, McHaley, something like that. But yeah, those trades you suggested, A1, really good. I love them. All right, special shout outs to Brayblade, Judge, Stretch, and the Ware Kid. You guys are too slow setting your teams in, so get them in next week. These guys are all obviously part of the top tier in terms of the sort of a more, I don't know how to describe it, upgraded sort of Discord experience. But look, we have heaps of channels available for everyone. So jump on Discord, link it in the description there, and plenty of fantasy chat to be had. If you want to have your team on this, just ask me how to do it on Discord, and I will tell you how to upgrade. All right, peace out, guys. That's Pimp My Team version 2 in the books. Hopefully it was useful. Hope you enjoyed it. Best of luck.